So what I'd like to do in the close of my formal remarks tonight, we have a number of things planned for you, Wendy and I have a number of things planned for you. But to close my formal remarks, what I'd like to do is to give you an account, a kind of futuristic look at what the world might look like 30 years from now if we carry on along the path that we're currently on. If we carry on with the redefinition of marriage, with the expansion of anti-discrimination laws, if we continue the way we have been continuing, what might the world look like 30 years from now? And I'm doing this by looking at the city of Oakland, California. I mentioned Bishop Salvatore Cordileone, who was our auxiliary bishop in San Diego. He's now Bishop of Oakland. And he is known to his friends and his enemies alike as the father of Proposition 8 because of his, sort of ringleading. And when he first moved to Oakland, some of the so-called alternative newspapers, found out about him, did a big hit piece on him, like, ooh, he's in charge, he made Prop 8 happen, oh, how terrible. And so because of his name, Salvatore Cordileone, they called him the godfather of Prop 8, which he decided he liked better. So we all now lovingly refer to him as the godfather of Proposition 8. So you have to kind of know that to appreciate this story that I'm about to tell you. So just picture yourself 30 years from now and pretend you live in Oakland, California. Okay. You and your grandson are going to a private prayer meeting at an apartment building in Oakland. You've been there often enough that you know a lot of the people sitting out on the steps or out in the yard. There's old Mrs. Garcia. She's raising her grandchildren. Her daughter got caught up with drugs and men and went off the deep end. Her 3 grandchildren have different fathers. She hopes she can keep the kids, but you never know what the courts will decide. There's Miss Marisol. Her little girl lives with her some of the time, but when she broke up with her boyfriend, he went to court to claim that he was the de facto parent and should have shared custody. He was doing it to be mean to her and because he wanted to have access to the little girl, if you know what I mean. Under the de facto parenting law, he counted as a parent because he spent enough time with the child and she used to call him daddy. So Marisol's daughter is with her old boyfriend part-time and she can't do anything to stop it. She didn't fight too hard because of her friend Lisa, who used to live in the same complex. Lisa got her daughter taken away from her completely. Lisa went into hiding with her daughter when the court ordered her to turn the little girl over to her former girlfriend part of the time. Somebody found her and told on her and she got found. Her little girl was taken away and Lisa actually did jail time. So Marisol figured out she's better off not fighting with her ex. Then there's Sherry and Rebecca. They're married to each other. They don't have sex with each other. They have sex with men, but nobody really cares about that. They each have 2 kids with different guys, so there are 4 kids there with 4 different dads, which actually means no dads. They each raise their own kids under the same roof and share health insurance, but that's about it. Of course, there are a few guys around. Billy Joe Bob just hangs around his mom's apartment. He has a couple of kids by a couple of different women. He doesn't feel any obligation to supporting any of them because he doesn't love those women or their brats. The courts have decided, after all, that love makes a family. Besides, Billy Joe Bob makes sure he doesn't earn very much money anyhow, so he doesn't have to pay anymore. His mom yells at him a lot, but he just laughs at her and does as he pleases. Then there's Luke. He got married to Sam when they were in the military. They thought it would be good to get off-base housing. They figured that when their tour of duty was up, they'd get divorced and it'd all be cool. But Sam got greedy and decided to sue Luke for his pension. Luke ended up broke and living in this broken-down joint. Then there's little Ned. Ned has 2 mommies and 2 daddies. Or I should say, he started off with 2 mommies and 2 daddies. They quarreled amongst themselves. They went to court over his custody and worked out an elaborate plan for sharing parenting among the 4 of them. Most of them got tired of being on the cutting edge of social change and lost interest in Ned. He used to cry at school every day because he never knew who was coming to pick him up. Now Ned lives here with his natural mom, Janet. Sometimes one of the fathers or the other mother will come over and demand to see him and take him on an outing. But his story ended pretty well because most of these people pretty much leave him alone now. Then there's Emily. Emily was bought and paid for by a guy who wanted a little girl. Of course, no one would marry this creeper. So he bought an egg, hired a surrogate, and used his own sperm to have this little girl. The law now says that artificial reproduction is a service and children are a commodity. Anyone who can pay gets to do anything they want. Anyhow, Emily's teacher figured out something weird was going on. She called Child Protective Services, so now Emily lives here with her teacher, Miss Lydia. But she had lived with her dad, or maybe I should say her manufacturer, for 7 years before anybody stepped in to help her. Then there's Tom. You can't look at Tom without thinking of the old saying, nice guys finish last. He married some guy from Latin America who wanted a green card. They both agreed they'd get divorced as soon as the immigration deal was sealed. But while that was going on, his husband, Alejandro, acquired a live-in girlfriend. She got pregnant. They used to ask Tom to look after the baby while they partied. He didn't think too much of it. He was trying to help out and be a nice guy. When the time came for Tom and Alejandro to get divorced, he found himself sucked into a child support suit. Unbeknownst to him, the law of marriage says that any child born to one partner during the life of their union is automatically the child of both. So when the girlfriend established his husband as the father of the child, Tom became the parent also. They stuck him for child support. They had it planned from the beginning. He used to have a pretty nice car and live in a nice house. Like I said, nice guys finish last. So you go up the steps to the prayer meeting at Miss Lila's apartment. Not too many people are coming these days. Today it's just Miss Lila and Mrs. Garcia and old Mr. and Mrs. Villanueva. They used to be very active in Couples for Christ, a worldwide Filipino organization for married couples. But some same-sex couples wanted to join. The organization tried to accommodate them, Christian charity and all that. But those same-sex couples didn't feel at home because so many of the Couples for Christ programs talked about how men and women should treat each other and how they could understand one another and talk to each other. So the same-sex couples sued. The judge made Couples for Christ take out everything that had anything to do with sex differences, and there wasn't much point to the organization after that. Old Mr. and Mrs. Villanueva didn't quite know what to do with themselves after the organization closed. They had lived and breathed Couples for Christ. So Miss Lila brought out the old plaster statue from its hiding place, and everybody brought out their prayer beads. They said their prayers for a while and drank coffee, and you and your grandson left. As you got on the train, you told your grandson, back in the day, these BART trains used to go all over the place. There aren't too many of them left now. You remember hearing back at the turn of the 21st century how much the government was spending on taking care of kids without their own parents. Back then, it cost the US government the equivalent of the GDP of New Zealand, $112 billion per year. You don't even want to think about what it costs today. As you're riding along, your grandson asks you, why is Miss Lila so sad? Well, her brother used to be the Bishop of Oakland. He's been in jail for the last 10 years, and she's praying for him all the time. Why did he go to jail? Well, you know that high school over on Fruitvale Avenue? Well, sure, Von Walker High School. That used to belong to the Catholic Church. Your grandson's eyes get wide. The church used to have schools? That school used to be called St. Elizabeth Ann Seton School. You couldn't bear to tell him that she had been a great pioneer of Catholic education in America. He wouldn't have understood such a thing. Well, the city tried to tell the bishop that the Catholic schools had to teach stuff that he didn't want to teach. Well, what kind of stuff? Well, God knew what he was doing when he created men and women as different but equal. Marriage is between a man and a woman. Kids need a mom and a dad, stuff like that. His eyes get really wide now, because he hasn't seen either of his parents in a long time. A lot of people started coming to the Catholic schools because they wanted their kids to learn that stuff and nobody else was teaching it. One day the police came and forced them to get rid of some books. All the parents came to the school to guard their kids and their books. The bishop blocked the doorway of the school and the police took him away. Some of the parents tried to fight back, but when the police started taking kids away to put them in foster care, most of the parents gave up. The bishop is still in jail. He was one tough guy. He never backed down. Secretly, a lot of people admire him, but they're afraid to say anything. You aren't afraid, are you, Grandpappy? That's why we go over Miss Lila's, isn't it? That's right. Grandpappy, you fought for the bishop, didn't you? Long, silent pause. The BART train rattles on. Grandpappy, you didn't do nothing to help the bishop, did you? No, I didn't do nothing. Here's our stop. Let's go watch the Raiders play ball. So you and your grandson get out of the BART at the end of the line at the crumbling Colosseum, the last remnant of what was once a great civilization. This is what our future could be if current trends continue. But this doesn't have to be our future. Many, many people agree with you and with me that marriage is the union of one man and one woman. They believe in traditional marriage, natural marriage, or maybe I should just say marriage without adjectives. If all of us get off the bench and onto the playing field, we can prevent this story from coming true. We can preserve marriage as the union of one man and one woman for our children and our grandchildren. Thank you very much. Now, at this time, we would like to recognize the brave state legislators who are with us tonight. I know there are quite a few, and so Wendy wants to introduce them. And I have a little present for them, which is a CD called Defending Marriage with Dr. J. And the story I just read is on this CD, so Wendy?
Sure. Unfortunately, we don't have a mic to take out into the audience, so if our legislators, senators could just stand and we'll go around and introduce you.
Thank you very much. We so appreciate it. You guys, these are the guys who can't be bought.
Senator Fenton Bruin, one of the sponsors of HB 437. Representative Kathy Laura Rago.
Oh, but you're doing the talking. You know who people are. I don't really need a mic.
Introduce yourself.
What did you say your name was?
Go ahead. Tell us who you are.
Representative Timothy Twombly,
And where are you from?
Nashville.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else who wants to be recognized? Anyone who would prefer to be anonymous? Okay.
Sponsor of HB 437, Representative David Bates is also here. We thank him so much for
We
his
appreciate
service.
you. We really appreciate it. Poor guy. He's scared of me. No, that can't be.
GrokTV.